Hello, and welcome to Visions Art Museum. My name is Laura Mitchell, and I'm the Executive Director of the museum. Visions is a textile arts museum located in Liberty Station in San Diego, California. And today I greet you from Of Meadows and Blue Skies, an exhibition by the fiber artist Melody Money. We're thrilled that the Storytellers of San Diego has chosen to interpret this artwork for the tales that you're about to hear. As you can see, Melody in this exhibition is celebrating the meadows outside her home in Boulder, Colorado. She's an expert at hand stitching as well as color and design. And this exhibition is complete with birds flying up above. For more information about Melody Money and this exhibition, you can visit Visions Art Museum's website, visionsartmuseum.org. And now I'm delighted to turn this over to our storytellers to help us enjoy this art all the more.
Hello, my name is Marilyn McPhie, and I'm a storyteller. I work with the Storytellers of San Diego. I've always loved going to the Visions Art Museum. They're amazing exhibits. In fact, the necklace I'm wearing is something I purchased at their gift shop. But when I learned that it would be possible for the Storytellers of San Diego to do a series of programs in conjunction with the Visions Art Museum, programs of art and stories, I was delighted at the possibilities. And when I saw Melody Money's exhibit of Meadows and Blue Skies, oh, I loved it immediately. Such detail, such color, such brilliance. Each work almost seemed to shimmer. And when I thought about the stories that would go along with that art, well, there was one in particular that I'll share with you. But I also thought about some poetry, and especially the poetry of Emily Dickinson, and this small poem about a prairie. To make a prairie, it takes clover and one bee, one clover and a bee, and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. Once there was a meadow. Now this was long ago and far away, although just exactly how long ago and how far away I can't tell. But it was glorious. Every spring, tall, lush grasses, wild flowers, butterflies, bees, birds, all underneath a blue sky dotted with white, puffy clouds. And the extraordinary thing about this meadow was that it was almost untouched. It was pristine. And that was extraordinary because on this side of the meadow, there was a farm owned by a man named John Ashley. And on this side of the meadow, there was another farm owned by a man named Roger Oakley. And each of them claimed that he owned the meadow. But the thing was, neither one of them could prove it. There was no deed, no land grant, no record of a bill of sale. They'd been to the land office, but didn't find anything substantial. And so because neither one could prove that he owned the land, they were unwilling to expend time and money on developing it. And that's why the meadow remained untouched. Now, it will come as no surprise when I tell you that Farmer Ashley and Farmer Oakley were not friends. They didn't get together for parties. They didn't share farm equipment or even surplus vegetables when they had them. And if you've ever had a garden and grown zucchini, you know there's always surplus zucchini. But they did not share. However, I should also tell you that though they never spoke to each other, each one owned a strong pair of binoculars to keep an eye on the other. Well, there was one day in early spring that Farmer Ashley woke up and he looked outside. The sky was blue, there was a breeze, and he decided to take a walk in the meadow. He strode into the middle of the meadow. It was lovely. He was enjoying himself. And then, coming from the other side of the meadow, he saw someone. It was Farmer Oakley. And when Farmer Oakley got closer, Farmer Ashley said, "What are you doing here? You're trespassing on my land. Get away." Farmer Oakley, of course, said, "What do you mean, your land? You know very well this meadow is mine." And it began. "The meadow is mine. No, mine, 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 mine." And then their words got more specific and more descriptive. Farmer Oakley said, "I don't even know why you could call what you've got a farm. It's just a place to crash for vagrants and ne'er-do-wells and hobos sitting around a campfire, singing songs, eating mushrooms and smoking. It's a disgrace, not even a farm." To which Farmer Ashley replied, "And you call what you've got a farm? You're in the pocket of agribusiness. Pesticides, fertilizers, toxic chemicals. You're not a farmer. You're a killer, that's what you are." I don't know who struck the first blow, but it won't surprise you to know that they came to blows. And they were about the same height and about the same strength, so neither had an obvious advantage. But finally, they came to a stalemate. The two were standing toe to toe, nose to nose, glaring into each other's eyes, and each with his hands around the other's throat. And there they stood. They stood there until the sun went down and the buzzing of the bees and the calling of the birds disappeared, and there was just an occasional hooting of an owl. They stood there all night. And when the first rays of the sun came up, Farmer Oakley and Farmer Ashley were still standing there, toe to toe, nose to nose, glaring, staring into each other's eyes with their hands around each other's throats. That morning, the grass of the meadow was covered with dew, and so were the farmers, but they were unwilling to yield. Then they heard a sound. Someone was coming across the meadow. That someone was singing. "Over in the meadow in a snug beehive lived an old mother bee and her little bees 5. Buzz, said the mother, wee buzz, said the 5. "Who is that?" said Farmer Ashley. "I don't know," said Farmer Oakley. "Why don't you turn and look?" "I'm not going to turn and look." They were still staring in each other's eyes. It was a staring contest, and neither one was willing to yield. "Tell you what," said Farmer Oakley, "why don't we both turn and look on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. And they turned and looked. And what they saw was a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, in a blue dress with a white pinafore, wild flowers in her hair. She was singing as she skipped through the meadow. Some people said she had a red cloak. I don't know about that, but what I can tell you is that she had a basket on one arm. And when she got closer to Farmer Oakley and Farmer Ashley, she said, "What are you two doing?" "Still standing there." Farmer Ashley said, "He's trespassing on my land." "No, the meadow is mine. You're the trespasser." And they began again. "Mine, mine, 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 mine," till the girl said, "Shh." And then she set down her basket on the grass, and she bent down so her face was close to the ground. And she spoke, but it was just a whisper. Farmer Ashley and Farmer Oakley couldn't hear what she said. And then she turned her head and listened. And whatever she heard, they couldn't hear. But then she nodded, and she stood, and she said, "You say the meadow belongs to you, and you say the meadow belongs to you. But has either of you thought to ask the meadow?" I asked the meadow, and what the meadow said is, "The meadow does not belong to Farmer Ashley." Farmer Oakley grinned. "And the meadow does not belong to Farmer Oakley." Farmer Ashley grinned. "The meadow says that you and I, we belong to the meadow." Well, Farmer Oakley and Farmer Ashley looked puzzled for a second. Then each took a breath. and they released their grip on each other's necks. And each stuck out a hand, and they shook hands. And then the three of them sat down in the meadow and had a picnic. Luckily, the little girl had brought enough to share. And what happened after that? Well, I can't tell you exactly. Did Farmer Ashley and Farmer Oakley become friends? Did they get together? Did they share equipment and vegetables? Did they change their ways? Oh, I don't know about that. But what I can tell you is that that meadow is still practically untouched. And every spring, the tall, lush grasses, the birds, the bees, the butterflies, all under a blue sky dotted with white clouds. It is glorious. And now I know that you want to know exactly where you can find that meadow. But that I cannot tell you, for that is a secret.
Melody Money's glorious quilts celebrate what's right with the world. Of Meadows and Blue Skies uses color and texture and intricate embroidery to open the heart to wonder and beauty. Inspired, I sought other artists who used words as their medium. This Chinese poem and folktale used the ear as their portal to beauty and wonder. Question and Answer on the Mountain by Li Bai. You ask why I stay on the green mountain. I smile and do not answer. My heart is at leisure. Peach blossom is carried far off by flowing water. Apart, I have heaven and earth in the human world. The Butterfly Robe, a Chinese folktale. The Prime Minister of China was exhausted with court life. As a young man, he had joined the government service with the intent to serve by making certain that the needs of all were met, from the poorest to the richest, and everyone in between. But now it seemed to him as though his colleagues were duplicitous schemers, intent on serving nothing but their own avarice and desire for advancement. It seemed there were no depths to which they would not sink, no lengths to which they would not go in their relentless pursuit of power and prestige and wealth. He realized that his growing cynicism was clouding his vision, and there were probably men of honor working right alongside him, to whose virtues his jaded point of view was blinding him. He needed to get away, if only for a little while. So, while still wearing his brilliantly colored court robes, he stepped into his sedan chair and asked his bearers to carry him up into the nearby hills. As they climbed, the years seemed to fall away, for he had grown up on a small farm not far from the path they traveled. Glancing up at the swirling, darting dance of the swallows, he felt his own heart begin to soar, and a smile swept across his face. They came to a meadow, and he called a halt, stepping down from his chair into the tall grass. The wind swept across the meadow, tapping the tall grass stems against the hem of his robe. In the distance, he could hear the whisper and gurgle and chuckle of a stream. He felt his whole body relax. He took off his shoes, buried his toes in the grass, becoming, for a moment, the boy he had been, stealing time from his studies and his work to play in the meadow. It was spring, and there were wildflowers everywhere, splashes of gold and purple and blue and orange and red and pink. The wind brought him hints of their fragrance, and he began to walk toward a large cluster of them. There he sat down on a large flat rock and drank in the beauty that surrounded him. The voice of the stream, the song of the wind, the beauty of the flowers, the swirl and dance of the swallows in the sky above. And as he sat there, so still, he saw a bee fly from a flower and land on his brightly colored robe. Oh, so you think my robe is a flower, do you? Well, you are a wise creature. Perhaps you're right. Maybe there is some nectar here for you. Drawing out his pocket knife, he cut off a snippet of the bright fabric and flung it onto the grass. Here, bee, a flower just for you. Well, go on, take it. Laughing, he cut another piece. Here, bees, take it if you like it. This piece he flung high into the air. It floated gently down onto an open flower. And then it rose again, fluttering from flower to flower to flower. What is this? He got a second piece and flung it after the first, and this piece too fluttered on silken wings. He cut piece after piece after piece, flinging them one after the other, and each and every one of them flew on bright silken wings. The Prime Minister stopped. His robe was nothing but rags and tatters. But the meadow was alive with shimmering butterflies. The Prime Minister set out for home a happy man. Yes, the tormenting life of court still awaited him, but he was a new man, revived, renewed. He had created something of beauty, and he carried it with him in his heart. From that day forth, there was often a mysterious smile on his face as he sat through council meetings. For when his colleagues were at their worst, he would slip away to the butterfly-filled meadow he carried in his heart.
Thank you, storytellers, for those wonderful tales inspired by the work of Melody Money. It's been a delight, and we'll look forward to more opportunities to tell stories from the museum in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.